Let's talk about something near and dear to your heart, Resident Evil. So you got to play the Resident Evil 3 remake. We'll go into super nitty
Hmm.
gritty details, but just like first off, what's your impressions? How did you feel playing it?
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. Absolutely loved it. I think it feels like a really faithful remake in a lot of ways, but it also feels like they've put their own spin on these characters in this story as well. Um, yeah, and I mean, I know it's going to be divisive because of the length. I mean, I think I beat it the first time in like 4 hours and a half, I think. But for me, um, it made me straight away know how manageable the game was. So I was able to then jump straight in again, and play it again and try and beat my time. And I actually I played through it the first time, and then the second time I did it again, without opening the item box and all of that. And yeah, so sort of overall, I think it's how Resident Evil should be, especially those older Resident Evils where it's just very manageable, um, extremely fun, like flawlessly like detailed and immaculately sort of crafted. And yeah, just it's a joy to play and replay again. And yeah, I mean, I've played through it 3 times now, and I'd be able to play it for a fourth time, no bother at all, and I wouldn't be bored. And I'd yeah, I'd enjoy it just as much as the first time. But yeah, that's my sort of overall impression of it. What did you think of it?
Same. I guess I wasn't when I heard some of the reviews come out saying that it was a shorter experience and them describing or across the board describing a kind of like less reason to replay it. I was a bit bummed, especially given the $60 price tag, and I didn't want to play Resistance. But over that weekend, I kept watching reviews and just seeing like going down the rabbit hole of the story of RE3, and I just have this bug where it's like I want to play it. Like I just kind of decided right then and there, and I'm glad I did, man. I had a ton of fun playing it. I don't think that it was as short as people were describing. I mean, you can really choose your speed that you go through it.
Oh, definitely,
And
yeah,
I took the long road. Like I just took my time. I guess maybe because I thought it was such a shorter experience, I took a long time. I ended up around like 7 hours just because
okay,
I
yeah,
just really just
yeah,
slowly walked around. Apparently, it didn't feel slow. Like I wasn't
yeah, yeah, no,
deliberately
yeah,
trying to, but I was having fun, and
yeah,
I really dug the
yeah,
changes. I think it wasn't. First off, it wasn't as scary, but there were times later on in the
no,
campaign that scared me more than I didn't realize.
yeah,
But it runs really well. That RE engine is beautiful.
hmm,
Just very little complaints. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
really glad I jumped in because I think that some of the reviews, at least for me, it wasn't short. It wasn't
no,
anything different from
yeah,
RE2. It was definitely in line with that.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think it's a valid criticism for people to say it's short. I think that people need to understand what it is. You know, these remakes are for the people who wanted them, and the people who wanted them are people who enjoyed the old ones. And the best thing about the old ones was playing through it. I mean, I think the original Resident Evil 3 would probably take about 4 or 5 hours to finish on your first go, depending on how stumped you get from the puzzles. Um, and then once you finished it, you're like, right, I now want to complete it on this new difficulty I've just unlocked, because then I can unlock these new costumes, or I can unlock this new weapon, I can unlock this, or you might just be like, oh, I killed loads of zombies, I want to try and do it quicker and not kill maybe as many, or and things like that. And I just felt that exact same experience playing the remake. And Resident Evil 2 got no criticism for its length, but I think that even though Resident Evil 3 is one campaign, there's one character. I mean, you obviously play as Carlos as well, but it's one campaign. I think that's not really a fair comparison, because Resident Evil 2, yes, did have 4 different playthroughs, but they were all pretty much exactly the same, except for one environment, and the A and B scenarios just started slightly differently. I think in terms of like a critical path, like in Resident Evil 3, I'd actually say Resident Evil 3 has more content than Resident Evil 2 does. It's shorter because Resident Evil 2, you're constantly backtracking, having to remember where this room was, where this item was. You're constantly being like, oh, I've got to put this in there, I've got to do this puzzle, I've got to run back down here, I've got to do all this backtracking all the time, which is amazing, and that's what Resident Evil 2 is so good at. But that's not what Resident Evil 3 is about. Resident Evil 3 is about being a bit more action orientated. It's about having the nemesis in it. and it's about having a fun time. So I think from a critical path point of view, I could definitely finish Resident Evil 2 far quicker than I could finish Resident Evil 3. So I think that in terms of content, there's actually more, if not about the same in Resident Evil 3. It's just that you don't spend time backtracking, doing puzzles, and doing all this kind of thing. So you do get through the game quicker. But yeah, and the thing with Resident Evil 2 was, although I did eventually do all the challenges and replay it and do all the different things, when I first finished it, I was like, and this is a good thing, but I was like, I do not want to play that again, because that was so stressful and scary. And the first time you play it, you're like, I still don't even remember where things are. I still don't even remember where I'm meant to go. But after Resident Evil 3, I knew straight away that I could then breeze through that game and try out different things, maybe try on a harder difficulty, try it doing one of the challenges, because they've got the store as well. I don't know if you saw that after you finished it. And they've got loads of challenges that you can do in game that give you points to spend in the score. So there's so many different things to do, and I just think it's so approachable. It's so nice. As soon as you finish it, you're like, oh yeah, that was such a blast, I want to do it again. Maybe that, because the first time I played it, when you get like the lockpick and the bolt cutters, I went back to get the shotgun, but that's all I got. I didn't know that there was anything else. I didn't do that puzzle that's in the subway, the dual clock thing. And then my second playthrough, I got the bolt cutters, went back, explored everywhere, got all the collectibles, got all the jewels, which you had to do from opening up a whole other supermarket, which I hadn't even been in the first time round. So there's a lot to do in a short time, but it's just so approachable that it's fun to go back to and do all these different challenges and do things a bit differently. And I think that that's exactly what's good about those older Resident Evil games, and I think they captured that perfectly.
No, I highly agree with everything you're saying. Yeah, so I do want to get into, so we kind of touched base, we dug it, it's awesome,
yeah,
great, but I want to get into the spoilery review stuff about it. Yes. So I have a graphic up that says we're going into spoilers, but how did you feel about Nemesis, this interpretation of Nemesis and this version of him in RE3?
I liked him as a antagonist. As Nemesis, I wasn't, I think he's probably the biggest negative about it. I'm glad that they put him in these scripted moments. That's not what I didn't like, but only because the biggest gripe people had with the original, and that I had with it, was that Nemesis just became so annoying towards the end, because he'd show up, you'd be like trying to do a puzzle and he'd just show up and you'd be like, oh, and like the entire time you're just in your head be like, please don't say Nemesis shows up, because I've now got to go and grab this and push this thing and climb up here, and then he would show up and you'd just be like, oh, for God's sake. But him being scripted not only makes these set pieces a lot more epic, look a lot better and play out really cool, but also, like I said before, it makes the game more manageable to play again, because you know when he's coming, so you can really plan your playthrough, which is a rare thing for a game. There's not many games where you can plan your entire playthrough, but this sort of lets you do that. So I liked that he was scripted, and I liked all the bits he comes up in, but I didn't find him scary at all. Even the part where you've got to like down him with that barrel so you can get through the vent, I just didn't find him scary. He was very animated, so when he like jump over you, there would be nothing frightening about it, in my opinion. I just don't think he was scary at all, and that's my only gripe with it. But towards the end, I loved the fight at the clock tower when he's like on all fours.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I thought, and at the very end when he like takes up half a room, I just thought it was like very Resident Evil. Yeah. And I really liked that. And I loved the way Jill kills him with that big electric gun. I just thought that was awesome.
I was thinking too with that on that scene when Jill grabs a gun, and it's cool like reveal slow-mo where she like has it, just kind of like cocked forward. I'm like, oh, I think Capcom has locked some kind of like weird porn thing in my mind now. I have to go down that rabbit hole, I guess, of like chicks holding railguns now. But so thanks for that. But
yeah. but yeah, on that note, I thought Jill and Carlos were just so brilliant as well. Um, I think Jill was just amazing, sort of in terms of her like character and how she acted and how she was a complete contrast to Leon and Claire, who were not experienced in what they were going through at all. Whereas Jill obviously had the mansion that she from Resident Evil 1 that she's already seen, and she's a lot more, and it comes across that way as well. And I like how it showed her sort of struggles, her like mental struggles from it. So at the beginning, where she like keeps freaking out that she's like turning into a zombie, and then she like freaks out thinking Carlos has turned into a zombie. And so you can tell that she's sort of haunted by these worries of her becoming one of these zombies or her friends becoming one of these zombies. And I think that was a really cool narrative point to put on, which you couldn't really explore in the original, because it was just these like cardboard characters doing this with their hands and things like that.
Now, what do you think about? Let's talk about that intro, because that kind of caught me off guard. I guess I just wasn't expecting them to go first person, and so I found it interesting. It's like, oh, okay, I can actually walk around this room in first person. I was, of course, taken back to like RE7, that kind of feel, but I dug them taking that route and letting me explore it in first person.
Yeah, I think to me it just was kind of like a way for Capcom to flex their engine off, being like, look how nice this game plays in first person and in third person, kind of thing. So I really liked that. It was a nice way to start the game, I think, and it just kind of made you really, I don't know, in a way it kind of makes you feel attached to Jill straight away. She just sort of put straight in her head in her apartment. You get to see how she lives. And yeah, I think it was just a really cool way to introduce you to a character before like throwing you straight into the game. Because before on Resident Evil 2, I mean, with Leon and Claire, you just pull up at the petrol station, you don't know anything about them unless you're a Resident Evil fan. Whereas with Jill, you straight away get put in her apartment, you see that she's got this like really paranoid, like board up. She's got like some notes from like employees, so you straight away know she's a police officer. And then the scene in the bathroom just sort of ties all that together really nicely. I thought it was just such a good way to introduce you to who you're going to be for the majority of this game.
Yeah, I agree. And I really dug, so right after that, they introduced you to Nemesis, and it's already we're off to the races. It's this kind of chase scene, and I really dug how they just kind of throw you right into the action. Yeah,
it was really, really cool. And I liked I liked that about Nemesis, how he's sort of like covered in all this like kind of like a bin bag, sort of just fresh out of the lab kind of thing, and I thought that was really cool. And then it made the first scene where he's on fire and he's like walking towards you, and it played this sort of like kind of like Terminator sort of drum in the background. And that drum's from the original as well, so that was quite a nice touch. So I think it was just similar to Resident Evil 2. I think they just made such intricate like choices, and it just all played out so well. But yeah, what did you think of Jill?
She was a great...
except when she wasn't holding a railgun.
Right, yeah. Well, that, I'll have to deal with that in the future. But otherwise, no, yeah, it was so dope. She's a really cool protagonist. I really like that. Yeah, just like you mentioned, she's used to, because she carries over from RE1, right? That she actually is there for that game. So she's been through this. She understands more of it, and I think it also explains why, story-wise, it's a bit more actiony, especially when you take over Carlos. It makes sense because these players or these characters are not only trained, but they've also dealt with zombie stuff. They just kind of know a bit more, so it reflects itself in the gameplay. It was still scary though for me in different times of the game, right? So you do have a lot more firepower this time around, but I think they balance that with like these really different environments. So like you have the first one that already said, hey, fuck that, like was that spider tunnel area. I didn't want to do anything involving that. But so already off the bat, it's like even though I have firepower, I'm still terrified in this little environment.
And I think what sort of scales back, because I mean there are definitely some scary bits in it, and I'll talk about those in a minute, but I think what made it less scary as well was the fact that Jill isn't really that concerned about these things because she's already been through hell with them before. Whereas in Resident Evil 2, you've got bits of dialogue that are constantly happening when you see these zombies, and it's like, you know, Leon and Claire are also scared, and it just doesn't, it makes you as a player also feel like sort of quite scared. Whereas when you're Jill, she's just really like cocksure, you know, cocky, you know, woman who's not afraid, and it's sort of like you sort of feel that in you as well when you're playing it, I think. And the fact she can sort of like do these cool rolls, and she like, you know, like breaks zombies' necks when they sort of come, like try and grab her, and you just feel a lot more powerful. And I think because I don't think there's too much more firepower in the game in terms of weapons. Like overall, I think you get a similar amount of guns, but I think it's just the way Jill acts and the way she, you know, uses these weapons and the way she, you know, fights back that makes her just feel so much more powerful, and makes you as a player, you know, feel like, you know, you can kill these zombies a lot easier. But there were times where it was very difficult as well, and that's what made me scared. And so the parts that scared me, I hated the hunters. I thought they were horrifying. In the hospital bit in itself was just horrifying. But there's a bit towards the end when those pale heads come, the sort of like regenerating zombies, which are a pain. But yeah, there was a part towards the end where, do you remember, you have to walk through in the lab, you have to walk through this room, and there's like test tubes with hunters and failed Mr. X's, it looked like. And I remember walking through there and I was like, oh God. But at the time I had hardly any ammo because I was stupid and kept trying to shoot the pale heads and didn't realise they couldn't die. I just thought they took more bullets. So I was walking through there, went up the elevator, like killed those zombies up there, grabbed what I needed, and then came back down the elevator. And then those hunters jump out the tubes, and I had no ammo at all, absolutely none. And then the doors shut, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was trying to, like, it felt like a Sekiro boss fight. I was like, I'm gonna have to perfectly time all these dodges and get that slow-mo like knife uppercut to kill all these things. But there was no way I was doing that. So luckily I had a save that I could load, and then I was a lot more a lot more careful with my ammo and until I got to that bit. And yeah, and so I think that danger is definitely still there in times, and I think that the reason that came up was because I was feeling cocky as well. You know, I was like, oh, it doesn't matter, you know, Jill's got this, I'll just kill everything. And then I got to a part and I was like, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more careful with my ammo consumption towards this last part of the game. But yeah, what was your what did you think of the hospital?
That's funny. So before the hospital, it's funny you bring up that point with in the test tube. That part gave me the same trouble where I didn't have enough ammo, and then you're locked in the room with them, and you're fucked. And so I had to go back to a previous. I didn't have a previous save. I kept overlapping my save like an idiot. Yeah. And so the way I did it was I bit the bullet and dropped my difficulty. I was already at just like the base level, so I dropped to assisted. Of course, they give you like an assault rifle and all this other cool bullshit. So it's like, okay, sweet. But so I beat the game that way because that's very close to the end. But I couldn't let that slide. So I went back, reloaded that save, and I guess just tried to maneuver my way through it. And I realized that I had, there's like a Magnum gun you reach towards the end. I had that stored away. I never used it. So I actually pulled that out of the inventory or of the safe room. And I was able to make my way and then finally beat it. But yeah, I mean, I must have played that like 4 times and just dying every time and just realizing, what do I do? So I finally dropped the difficulty. But
yeah, because the hunters are difficult as well because they have that move that will just instantly kill you, even on the easiest difficulty. And it's the same on the other Resident Evils on RE1, like the RE1 remake, which I've been playing. I played recently. And when the hunters come there, they just swipe at you and you're dead.
Right.
And so, yeah, you got to be so careful of that. And I always found, like, when you're shooting them, you know, you're about to do the final shot and they need to reload. And then it's just, I just thought that they were just such, like, fearsome enemies.
And they dodge really quickly.
And they just made me so scared of the hospital part. And it's just horrible. They're just not, and even the first time I played it, my first playthrough, I didn't get the Magnum because I didn't think of going back into the hospital as Jill. I just, as soon as I got to that door, that leads to the lab, I was like, yeah, I'm going. I'm going straight.
Because she has
in
a
there away from
lock pick,
these
so
hunters.
there's other locks up there that.
Yeah, and then there's that like small like bit she can crawl under, which lets her get to the Magnum. But yeah, I got it on my second go, but I'm playing through it a third time at the moment, and I'm trying to. So the second playthrough I did, I got all the collectibles and all the bobbleheads and all of that, and I'm playing through it again. And I'm trying to do a lot of the challenges, like get however many kills with the shotgun, however many kills with the assault rifle. So I'm going to certain places and like restarting my load when I run out of ammo, and just sort of trying to like rack up the kills because I want to get the infinite rocket launcher.
Gotcha. Nice.
but I've just done so I've just done quite a few of them, and I'm at the bit where the zombies are breaking through into the hospital, and you've got to defend Jill.
That part was nuts.
And yeah, it's absolutely mad. And I'm sort of debating whether or not to go back through the hospital with Jill and face, these the new hunters that spawn when you go up there, or whether just to leave the Magnum and try and afford the infinite rocket launcher without it.
Yeah, I just kind of, as an idiot, stumbled up there like, oh, what's up? And then you can find the room where there's two of them, and you're like, oh shit. But
yeah, that bit took me a while as well.
Yeah, because they're tough. Just like you mentioned, if you get too close, it's one hit, one kill. But they'll still swipe at you. But that hospital level in general, that was one of my favorite moments because I guess they lean harder on that RE2 style of really small corridors. And it's super dark, even if you're playing as Carlos, but like his flashlight doesn't trigger for a while. Like I didn't realize I had a flashlight until like you're like 3 stories up, and then it turns on for some reason. It's like, hey man, I could have used that earlier. But it's so creepy. And there's something about Carlos's like character, like when he's aiming down with his assault rifle, it just looks so just good. Like I just felt like Carlos was such a good character, and I think they did him so well. And it's not often that, especially in a Resident Evil game, that you really like the sort of main protagonists of the game. And I really liked Carlos and Joe, and I can't remember the name. Is it Tyrell or something, his friend? Yeah. And he was a really good character as well. And but yeah, I loved the hospital, and I liked going back into the police station as well. That was cool to sort of see. You get to see how some of the things that were in the RE2 remake happened, like with the liquor and blowing up the shower room and everything. But there was one thing I thought was quite a cool little addition, because it's so easy to miss, which is when you detonate the shower room, which is obviously what creates that big hole in the wall in the RE2 remake, is I had forgotten to do something. I can't remember what it was. I think I'd forgotten to get a bobblehead or something on my second playthrough. I detonated the wall, and then I realised I'd forgotten, so I went to turn around, but because where you detonate the wall, that's what makes the steam valve break, which is no, you can't go back because in the RE2 remake you can't get through there because there's a steam valve broken, and you need to go and grab the steam valve. So it was the explosion that sort of made that happen, and I just thought that was such good attention to detail to keep that in so that you can't go back as well. And yeah, I just I think it just had a good mix of, like with the hospital and the police station, of these claustrophobic areas, but they felt a little bit different because you were playing as Carlos, who's well equipped. You sort of felt like you were going and clearing out these like places, and it really felt like, I don't know if you've seen the Wreck movies, the horror films, but they're these like camcorder movies, and the first one is about these like block of apartments in Spain, and there's like some infection inside and there's zombies and all that, and it's really creepy. But the second film is about these like special forces going to the same apartment building, but they've got like machine guns and everything. So you got the first film, which is scary because it's like a survival thing, then the second film where these guys go in with their machine guns, and it's still scary, but it's really cool because they're going in and shooting all the zombies and like clearing things out. And it sort of had that kind of like contrast to me, where you've got Resident Evil 2 where you're sort of wandering around this creepy, mysterious police station with like a handgun and a shotgun. But in RE3 you go into this police station with Carlos, and he's got an assault rifle with like 400 bullets. He gets loads of grenades, and so it was exactly the same environment, but
it just had this completely different feel, and I just thought it was just really clever how they did that.
You know what? That's interesting. It's very similar to so the Alien franchise. Remember the first Alien movie? It's very much claustrophobic. It's one alien or one xenomorph, and the second one they give you 10 of them, and you have like assault team of combat, army dudes, and so it's the same kind of like the ante's always upped in a similar way. It seems like.
Yeah, and you're exploring like familiar things. So you're especially in RE3 and that Rec movie I was saying, like it's like the exact same location. So there's things you recognize from the sort of from RE2 where it's a lot more survival and a lot more creepy, and you really grow to sort of be scared of that police station in RE2 because you have to backtrack through it so many times and you get lost in it, and Mr. X is chasing you through it, so you have a lot of these bad memories. So to go back in with an assault rifle, it just makes you feel like it makes it feel like a completely different place, but in a good way, and I just thought it was really clever the way they did that.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. There was a lot of nods to, like you mentioned, RE2. I was hoping that, and obviously they're in the same area, literally. So I was hoping that even though it doesn't match up story-wise, I wanted to see Mr. X again, and I was hoping you see him walk by or he blasts through a wall or something. I get the time frame wise. I think this is all happening before he shows up. But I just wanted to see him, man. It's something about it. Or I wanted to see him and Nemesis just like look at each other and nod and like walk away, something.
I don't know if you saw in that same room with the test tubes and that on the right hand side. So the hunters were on the left. On the right hand side, they were all Mr. X's. Yeah. But they were all like deformed, disfigured in a way. Yeah. So like it seemed like they were like failed ones or whatever, which I thought was a nice touch. Because it was the Nest 2, this one was called, wasn't it? The lab, and then the first one was called the Nest.
Yeah, because they're different labs, and so I guess Mr. X comes from another lab when they send him over to kill whoever the other characters. I just thought it was I thought it was a really good. I thought it was a perfect remake of RE3. So I want to get to because you've played the RE3, the actual the standard version. So where do you think? Where are the differences? Where did they succeed? Where did they fail on just comparing those two?
So the original RE3, well, the remake sort of is pretty much there's no puzzles at all to progress. I found even the times when there are kind of puzzles, like at the end when you've got to get the vaccine, like the two samples, it's not really a puzzle. You're literally just finding two things and combining them.
That's true. Yeah, there was a lack of puzzles, but maybe that is what extended the time on RE2 was the backtracking for puzzles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what made it more manageable, more fun to play through again, because there wasn't any puzzles, so you didn't have to remember, what was the code for this or anything like that, like it was in RE2. So I think that might rub people the wrong way. I didn't mind it because that's not what I liked about RE3. It's what I liked about RE2, because RE2 is you don't go to many places. You're only in the police station, so it makes more sense to have these puzzles and all this backtracking because you're in literally one building for pretty much the whole game. Whereas RE3, there's a lot of different environments. So I think there was a lot less puzzles. The one thing that I didn't like that they didn't include was the fact that Jill doesn't go to the police station. A lot of RE3 is, a big portion of it is spent in the police station as Jill. And in fact, it's actually the first place you meet Nemesis is outside the police station. And then you go in and then you have a few puzzles to do and all of that. And it's also home to the biggest scare I've ever had in a game. And it's where you're running down these stairs in the police station and Nemesis bursts through the window. And so I thought it was a shame to not see Nemesis in that police station, because I was really looking forward to that. I was looking forward to playing as Jill and having Nemesis, chase you in the police station, because that was a big moment in the original for me, really sort of scary moment. So it's a shame that they cut that out. Other than that, I think that they've only improved on it. I know some people are annoyed that the clock tower's not in it, which is where the spiders originally were. But I think that where they've cut things, they've added new things, and I think the new things are are just as good, if not better, anyway. But so yeah, I'd say I'm disappointed they cut out the police station as Jill. And with I just think having, because going back to where I said I didn't find Nemesis very scary, just because I knew you knew when he was there, he was always like quite scripted, so it was quite hard for him to really be too much of an issue, which I didn't mind. But I just thought I just really did think that they would have at least have him chasing you around the police station like Mr. X did, and I think that would have really added some terror and some really horrible moments to the game. So yeah, I think it's a shame they didn't do that, but other than that, I can't complain, because it's I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, with Nemesis this time around, you think now's the time to have him chase you a bit more, because in the remake you don't have as much puzzles, you have more firepower. So it's like now's the time where you would kind of lean on him to add more terror, but they end up not doing that. And I guess you mentioned perfectly, it makes more sense. You have more fun with him in these scripted moments, because you can kind of be at ease knowing that he's not going to show up to mess things up. But I guess I kind of miss the idea of him chasing me a little bit more, that's what I always like. I loved it with Mr. X, where he was always on your ass and scary for most of the time. But and I was always stressed out about it. But looking back, I kind of miss the fact that I could never feel comfortable. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I think that's why, because I think it's definitely the right choice to make him scripted as he was, but because I didn't really, because I tried to sort of stay away from too many trailers and things for RE3, because I didn't want to sort of know how certain things were going to be transferred. But I did think, even when I got the game, I assumed that you would go to the police station as Jill, and I assumed Nemesis, they would at least recreate that scare where Nemesis jumps through the window and then he's pursuing you around the police station whilst you're doing it, because you don't spend that long in the police station. I mean, it's a fair chunk of the game, but I think just having a scripted moment in the remake where you're Jill in the police station, you have to, maybe even a segment as long as the Carlos bit, where you literally have to do one thing, like you have to go and find one thing, but Nemesis just pursues you whilst you're trying to do this one thing, because that would be a scripted moment in itself. But I just think that would be a really scary and intimate moment of Nemesis. I think that's what it was lacking. There wasn't enough intimacy with Nemesis. You didn't get to see him up close that much, because you were mostly running away from him. Whereas I think if he was in a claustrophobic place with you, like the police station, I think you'd really get to know sort of his how scary he really is, and really get to sort of get scared by him. Because I don't think he did scare me once in the game, and I think that having a more close quarters and intimate section with him would have been perhaps a bit better. But yeah, like I said, I still enjoyed what they did. I just think that they missed a trick there.
Yeah, with Nemesis, I could have used more of him screaming stars too. I think I remember like once or twice. Yeah. I was, ready for him to be calling it all day, in the game, but I just could use a bit more of that. But
and they made that's one thing I didn't like about him, is the way he says stars in the new one. He sort of is kind of like a guttural like moan. Yeah. Whereas in the original, he actually says it like you can. I mean, obviously, he doesn't sound normal, but you can tell that that's what he's saying. Whereas there was a few times in the remake where I wasn't sure if he was saying it or whether he was just like groaning. Yeah. So I agree. I think they could have that, but I think that they did change Nemesis quite a lot, and that's another thing I think that they probably shouldn't have done. Is I just don't think he needed to be changed to the length they changed him. In terms of how he looked and how he sounds. I just think that they already had the most perfect character design and they didn't have to change it. But yeah, they're little things that, when I finished the game, I was like, it's a shame that, this was like that or this was like that. But overall, the good far outweighs the bad. I really, really loved it.
That reminds me, too, there was one feature that didn't carry over, and I was kind of expecting it to. In the very beginning, when you encounter the spiders, one of them infects you in a super gross scene where it just like shoves something down your throat, and then you have these bugs inside of you, and you have to do the poison removal thing where it's like you mix the green and the red herb or whatever, right? I was expecting them to keep doing stuff like that, because the idea of being poisoned is common in Resident Evil, but the idea of it now being inside of you and you have a time limit, I guess that's also being poisoned too, but like I like the effect of it being an actual bug, but it never came
Yeah.
back in the rest of the game.
Yeah. It seemed a bit half-assed in a way because, the way you got rid of it was just a single green herb, which is like a bit, I thought, because there was no blue herbs in it, which were in the RE2 remake, which got rid of poison. And then, you pick up that note just before you get, because you have to get infected, don't you? There's a part where like it has to happen. And there's a note and it says, "Oh, the green herbs work," or whatever.
Oh, is that all it was? I assumed it was the red and the green. I guess I never tried just the green.
Oh no, it's you just give you just one green herb.
That's even easier. Wow.
So I thought that so I thought that was a bit of a strange. I don't really understand why they even did that, but because the red herb basically creates a green and a red is the same amount of health as 3 greens.
Gotcha.
So 3 greens mixed together. So red's basically like a shortcut to a more potent herb, basically. But yeah, I agree. That was a bit. It seemed a bit throwaway. They didn't really sort of expand on it, and this I did like the spider bit. I think it was cool to have like that maze of like horribleness. Yeah. But it did seem a little bit out of place. Like it seemed like they were like, oh, we forgot to put the spiders in. Like how are we gonna put them in? And they didn't even show. They don't show up again or anything. So I liked it when the first time I played it, and then the second time I played it and I got the spider bit, I was like, oh, I completely forgot about this bit, because it's like it's really cool and creepy and well done the first time you play it, but it's not until you complete the game and you're like, oh, I didn't even see those spiders again. And I didn't even there's no more of those parasite things or anything. So yeah, it was a bit and also I that bit's not, it's not like that bit's very difficult. It's not like I found they don't really infect you that often. They normally just use like a normal attack, which you can just get out the way off or whatever. And even if they do that to you, all you have to do is use a green herb. So it did seem a bit throwaway. And I think they could have done that bit maybe a little bit better. But from a visual, like, scary standpoint, it was well done.
See, I was also expecting a big boss battle with a crazy spider, and I know that there's a huge spider in the original RE3, so I was waiting for that, and it never happened. But
yeah, in fact, that reminds me. There's another boss they cut out as well. It's like this huge worm underground that you have to fight as well.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, like a big purple worm thing, which is absent from the remakes. There's quite a lot cut from it, definitely. But I think what they added in was like the hospital and Carlos going into the police station, and sort of the way they did the lab at the end, I think was pretty cool, and I liked that addition, because I think the lab environments on this engine as well just look so cool. Like the white walls and all of that. But yeah, so and there have been quite a few criticisms about what they've cut, and I do get that, but I think it's not worth being like, oh, why wasn't this in it? Why wasn't this in it? Because at the end of the day, it's a remake. They're trying to remake the experience that or the feelings that the originals gave you. And I think from that perspective, they did that, and then they've reimagined it in a way that means that some things didn't make it to the remake, but what did make it and what they did add is more than enough to cover it.
And also, it's important that this was made in. I mean, they started a little bit before RE2 release, but this is basically a year turnaround to go from RE2 remake to this one for a basically full-fledged game. Yeah, you tread some of the same ground. They could reuse some assets, but it's still another game in a year. So I mean, that's kudos to them.
Yeah, and I see a lot of criticisms about the fact it's priced at a full price game, but I get that criticism. I understand, like, obviously people have different opinions on what they want to spend their money on, and that's completely fair. But I personally think that it's more than worth a full game price, as Resident Evil 2 would have been as well, and I think that I've played through it 3 times now. I've probably put in about 10 hours or so. I've had great fun. I'm going to play through it another few more times, try and get the platinum, and do everything you can do on it. So I'll definitely be getting my money's worth. And you see, like, a lot of people saying, like, I saw one person saying that he was like, oh, it was fine back on PlayStation 1 that these games were really short because you could get games on PlayStation 1 for $30, and I was like, The games have always been this price. Like I remember buying. I remember Resident Evil 2. We had it on PS1. It had like the price sticker on it, and it was $49.99 in pounds, which at the time probably would have been about $80-90, because at the time the exchange rate was sort of around that. But yeah, they've all, and that's not even including inflation. I mean, £50 back in the late 90s would be what, like 70-80 pounds now. So if that. So I mean, I don't get that argument at all, and I also don't get, and you know, I'm seeing it now with Final Fantasy as well, because that's apparently meant to be 40 hours, which is so short. But the people are saying like, oh, I sunk 100. I know, and they're like, oh, I sunk 100 hours into the original Final Fantasy 7, which firstly, like, I don't know how they. I mean, I've played the original, and it took me like 35-40 hours to finish the original. So I don't know how they managed to get 100 into it, but like, I don't know why there's this obsession with like time and like how long it takes for a game to be finished. It's like, if you're gonna play a game for like Last of Us, for example, what's that, like 8 to 10 hours long maybe? You know, you play through The Last of Us and you have an unbelievable time. Nobody would question the fact that that's a full price game, like, at all. But then you got Final Fantasy VII Remake, or you know, these other games that just because games similar to them are longer, they're like, oh, why is what, you know, I'm not paying that. It's like it's like people would rather play a game for 200 hours that's like really crap or like just average, rather than like a 10 to 30 hour like really tight experience. Like, I don't get it. And I think even if Resident Evil 3 had no replay value at all, I'd still happily pay full price for the game I played for 4.5-5 hours, because I got, you know, a good, I played it for a whole day, despite it taking that long. I mean, you know, you have breaks, like you do other things. I had a whole day of enjoyment from that game, and you know, to me, that's worth the price of a game. And I've also got, not, I don't know if I'll ever play it. I mean, I might try it this week, but it also comes with Project Resistance, which you know, and I get people always like, oh, why couldn't they sell them separately? And it's all because that's not what they've done. They're not separate. So yeah, but I do understand that that criticism, but like, yeah, I don't know.
No, you're right.
It's just one of those things.
You touched on some great points, and I found myself thinking the same thing the past couple of days. It's like, I always struggle with it. You should, in theory, if we're talking about games, if we're picking them apart and we're fans of them as a genre, it's like you kind of have to be able to separate the price and the thing itself, because it's not only its price tag, it is what is the experience. And I feel the same way, where I had the hurdles where it's like, God, $60, it's going, I hear it's short, but playing it, even if I just played the one time, that was easily worth the money. I mean, it was about the fun that you had playing it and the feelings you had playing it. So I also don't like, and though I go back and forth with this feeling of quantifying, like, oh, how long is it versus what is the price worth of admittance. It's like, it's about the actual content, and this one provided that content 100%, and it didn't, you know, I think it was a fair price to charge it $60. And as soon as I was playing it, I kind of put that in my mind. It's like, oh, I'm having a lot of fun here. I don't know what I was worried about with this quantifying, you know, the price and the length of it.
Yeah, and it's the production value as well. I mean, you're playing it and it's like spotless, like it plays so well, didn't have a single technical hiccup, it looks amazing, plays amazing, like it's you can tell its value just by playing it,
right?
And, you know, but again, like that's how, you know, me and you see it, but and I know that some people don't see it that way, and I get that, and I know that some people, you know, they can only get, like, you know, maybe one, like they can't get as many games or whatever, and I understand that completely. But I think I just don't understand when people complain about it. It's like, but you don't have to buy it, and like and they complain about it as if, because I've seen a lot of things saying, oh, it's just a quick money grab, and it's like they, like, you can see the amount of effort they've put into it just by playing it, and it's not, and they're remakes of games that even Capcom said, we'll make these games if people want them, and so it's obviously the people who have played the old ones who want them,
right?
And that's the kind of experience they're trying to replicate, and that's exactly what they've done. So I don't have any problem with people, you know, criticizing it for its length or its price or whatever. I just have a problem with people who try and like say it's a bad game or that Capcom are trying to, be greedy or whatever, because it's just not the case at all.
No, you're right. They're doing it because we want it. I mean, they're like, what?
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
I keep hearing of this survey. I didn't pull it up, but it was also in the news this week that there's a Capcom survey being sent to various people, just asking, hey, do you want more Resident Evil? Like, they're trying to gauge the fan base there and the reception. And no, I want more. I want all these remade. And my next thought too is, and there's little tidbits of story that kind of get my brain thinking, okay, what's the next route they take? Because there's a lot of references to the Arklay Mountains, which is where the first game takes place. And of course, story-wise, that's why those references are there. But then I wonder, are they leaving these little tidbits because that's where they're going? But also, with some of the news stuff you find, the articles you find in the game, leave a lot of threads to this Europe umbrella branch. And is that more of RE4 because that takes place in like a European setting?
I'm not sure what that could be.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a lot of little references to an Umbrella corporation, a wing of Umbrella in Europe.
Yeah.
And also, what makes me think of more of a connection to RE4 is the fact that Nemesis, at least in that demo, he infected zombies with those tentacles. And those tentacles really don't show up until RE4. Like the idea of this bug using it, and not a virus.
Yeah, the Plagas thing.
Right.
Yeah. So I've just quickly looked up. So Code Veronica is set in. It starts with Claire raiding an Umbrella Corp in Paris.
Okay.
Looking for Chris. So that could be that. Maybe that's pointing to that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you say about RE1 because I've been one of those people who, I hadn't even considered it to be next because it's already had a remake for the GameCube. But I think that setting would just be amazing in this sort of new way. And I think that now we've seen Jill getting a look at what she was like, in this situation, similar to how Claire and Leon were. I think that would be a really cool step to take next. Because you've gone from these new, not recruits, but these people who are unaware of what's going on in this like really claustrophobic location, and now we've gone to where you've got Jill, who's more experienced, slightly more actiony. But then to go back to Resident Evil 1, use a character we like the remake fans know, like of this new Jill, use that same character, but when she's a bit more sort of like fresh. I think that would be really interesting. And I think Resident Evil 1, the places you go to, I think in this new style remake would be, something really special. So I think that could, I personally, I think would like to see Resident Evil 1 done next. But I think it would make sense for Code Veronica just because the time that came out, people were like really sick of the whole fixed camera angles and tank controls. So it makes sense for that to get some love because I think it's very sort of underappreciated. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't really see Code Veronica getting that much of a pop really. It just doesn't quite have that same iconicness that these other games have. Resident Evil 2 had the iconic police station,
right.
Which when brought to life again in this remake was just so amazing to see. Resident Evil 3 obviously had Nemesis and Raccoon City, which is so iconic, and RE1 has that mansion, which speaks for itself. And I don't think Code Veronica really has anything that would be sought after for a remake. I mean, you can still play Code Veronica on the PlayStation 4 and I just don't really see that much of a reason to remake Code Veronica X. But so I personally think RE1 would be the best route to go.
Yeah, I agree with same where Veronica just wasn't. It's not looked at very fondly. It was a fine game. That was actually one of the first Resident Evil games I played most of the way through. But you're right. It makes sense for them to focus on what's going to get them a good return on their time spent and on the dev side anyway. So yeah, RE1. And I do think make us wait a bit for RE4. Take your time and really work on something. Maybe even wait till next gen. Take your time with RE4 because it's so important. There's a lot of people I've been reading online. They're like, hey, don't remake it at all. which I
Yeah.
get, but also I want to see that
Yeah.
game remade. I want to play that in
Yeah.
that new engine. So take your time, give us, if not Veronica,
Yeah.
give us RE1, and then we reveal that.
I get it as well. I can see why people say it, because for people who are familiar with it, it is still really easy to play. But like you were saying, like for first timers, it probably feels very outdated. And yeah, I think that that's where people need to. It's like for example, when people say, like I follow a lot of like Final Fantasy communities, like I said, and a lot of people are always like, oh, I've never played Final Fantasy, which one should I start with? And people are always like, I'll start with Final Fantasy 7, and all this, but it's like that is honestly the worst Final Fantasy to start
Even I
with,
know,
because
yeah.
yeah,
So much
it is.
happens.
It is. Even though it is the most popular one, it's the most famous one. It is just, oh my god, it is just horrific to look at. And it does have amazing music and an amazing story, but it is just. But that's the thing. These people who have played that game when they were kids, because I didn't play 7 when I was kids. I played it like fairly recently, and they don't realize that, because when they play it again when they're older, they remember how to play it. They remember how it goes. They remember, how it works, and they've got that nostalgia.
Yeah.
When I play Resident Evil 4, I've completed it so many times that it just feels natural to me to play it. I remember where to go. I remember how the controls work, and everything. So you just sort of need to like try and look at it from a different perspective sometimes, and just think like, yeah, okay, maybe this game does need a remake for those who haven't played it. But one thing that I did think of was Resident Evil 8. Like you were saying about them reusing assets for RE3. If they're setting this in a village, perhaps it's a way for them to, quite efficiently get a building blocks ready for an RE4 remake. And I heard that they're thinking of putting an inventory system similar to RE4, with the sort of like the grid where you've got to like move things around. So who knows, maybe they're wanting to base RE8 in that, because that's the next natural thing for them to work on. And then after they finish with that, they're going to have building blocks for an RE4 remaster, the exact same way why I think they included Mr. X in RE2, which was to, maybe try and get some building blocks for Nemesis.
Yeah. No, that's actually super a great way of looking at it, because that makes the most sense, and they're going to try and overlap if they can some of the dev stuff, because that makes the most sense, and they've already done that with RE2 to RE3. So yeah, that's actually a great point.
Yeah, so I am. So hopefully that means that. I mean, I'd love to see. I just love Resident Evil, so I mean, no matter what they bring out, I'll play it, and I can't really see how they can do anything incorrectly, really.
Yeah, it seems like they're conscious. I guess I would say incorrectly, like with Resistance, it's not an incorrect move. It's just more of like, I don't know who wanted that, but I like that they're dabbling with these different ideas, and that only strengthens them, because they're trying to see what works. What if they find something that does work with a type of Resistance game, then by all means go for it. But I like that they're willing to change and try new things. That means that they're going to strike gold again and find the right path.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice, Callum. Well, I mean, we both dug it. It seems like that's pretty awesome. I can't wait to see what they do next. Of course, my next thing is like, I want to get more Resident Evil, but I think we're gonna really wait for this next one, unless they go with like another remake kind of thing. I think we're gonna wait a while. If maybe that rumor's true that 2021 we get an RE8, but I think we're gonna wait a good while for another Resident Evil.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe some DLC like for RE2. That would be cool. But yeah, it's probably gonna be a while now till we get something else. Which it's like when a new series comes out, isn't it? And you've been waiting ages and ages for it, and then you watch it all in one day, and then you're like, oh, I've got to wait a year now.